Hello, everyone, and welcome back to History Inscribed, where we talk paper assets and the stories behind them. Now, today we're going to be talking about the types of dealers, and this ties into where do you actually buy historical documents. This is a critical topic if you want to get into historical document collecting, either just for collecting as a hobby's sake or definitely for investment purposes. Now, I've identified 5 different kinds of sellers in this market, and most, if not all, sellers could probably be placed into one of these categories. And so this is going to really help you because when you are buying or selling, you need to understand the other party's agenda. You need to understand what they expect to get out of the deal, what kind of margin requirements they're working with, how tight their pricing is going to be, how much they understand what they're actually selling. And it's going to vary greatly between the 5 different categories that we're going to talk about today. So let's get into it. The types of dealers you're going to encounter here. Number 1 is the auction house, and unfortunately, this is what most people think of exclusively when they think of buying historical documents. They think, oh, these historical documents, they're so rare, they're so valuable, they're like museum quality. You have to go to a physical room, you have to be invited, you have to wear a suit and tie, somebody's going to bang a gavel, an auctioneer is going to auction these things off. This is really not the case with the majority of documents. This is a specific high-end segment of the market, and the auction houses mainly have gone online as well nowadays. So the average person can still access documents via auction house. There's no rule that you can't source your documents this way. However, it is not the end all and be all by any stretch of the imagination. So what are the properties of the auction house? They are typically high-end items. They're typically on the higher end. The auction house is not going to waste their time with a $50 letter from an obscure person from history. They're not going to waste their time with a bill of lading necessarily. They're not going to waste their time with a random land deed. They're going to curate high-end items that they think are going to generate interest in an auction format. These also have high overhead costs. You must understand this. They have to pay for their physical space, their website, the personnel involved in marketing, in procurement, in shipping, insurance. All these things come into play. They have high fixed costs. But because of that high overhead, you get a lot of services out of this too, right? So these pieces are going to be thoroughly researched. They're going to be, for the most part, authenticated. And they're going to be curated, right? Some people don't want to dive through 100 or 200 or 300 pieces just to find one that interests them. Mostly all these are going to be interesting, even if they're not exactly what you're looking for. They're going to have fewer pieces for sale overall. And they're going to have the most competition, right? These are high profile. People are going to be bidding on these at the last minute. They're not going to slip through the cracks. Eyeballs are on these things. So the auction house, as you can see, it has its pluses and minuses, right? You're looking at higher end pieces, more interesting pieces. They're curated, they're researched, they're authenticated. You know they're going to be shipped to you properly. The downside is you're not going to find any instant arbitrage here. You're not going to find any short-term deals or flips. You're not going to find any bargains. These are kind of blue chip pieces that require a buy and hold strategy before you come out from underwater. A lot of auction houses have a 20% buyer's fee. So in addition to marking up the product in order to cover their overhead and to give the actual consignor their cut, they're going to take another cut, usually around 20%. So when you buy a piece here, generally you're going to be underwater at first. The flip side of that is you're probably buying a real piece of history that has higher liquidity, so you do expect it to appreciate and function as an asset. But remember that this requires a kind of long-term hold, a buy and hold strategy. Okay, so those are the auction houses, and these would be things like Heritage Auctions, Swan, RR Auction, Morphe's. Professional auction sites dealing with this. Okay. Okay, so that would be the auction house. Let's go into number two. Number two is going to be a, we'll call it the retail gallery. Okay, and the retail gallery has some similarities to the auction house. It's going to have some similarities to the next one we're going to look at as well, which is a volume seller. But basically, it takes a lot from the auction house, and instead of the auction, it's going to have buy it now formats. So the retail gallery has curation, authentication, oops, turned that one wrong. Curation, authentication, the high overhead, but it has a buy it now price. But these prices are generally quite high. Now, why would anyone choose the buy it now format? Well, because there's a certain segment of the population, is usually upper middle class, lower upper class, that is attracted to the curation aspect, the authentication aspect, and not having their time wasted searching through so many listings. And they're willing to pay a premium for that. So a lot of these people just want to buy a gift. They don't necessarily want to learn all there is to learn about buying historical documents. They want to buy a gift for someone. They want to buy a piece for their office. They want it to be real, and they don't want to spend a lot of time. And they have disposable income, let's be frank. They're going to go to some place like this, and they're just going to click buy it now. Maybe they'll negotiate downward a little bit, which is a good idea, but basically there's a certain segment of the population that just has enough money that they don't care really if they're getting the best price on something. They would rather it be real, they would rather their time not be wasted, etc. And so this would be something like RAB, or more accessible to the average person would be like history for sale. And these pieces are going to be thoroughly researched as well. There's not going to be any research arbitrage there. You're going to know what you're getting, you're going to see good photos, but you're not going to be getting a bargain price at all. You're going to be paying on the high end of retail. Okay, so that would be the retail gallery. And number 3, this is kind of a big one, the volume dealer. Now, the volume dealer is usually an individual. They may have a storefront. They may operate out of their home. They may have a workshop type setup. They need a place to store a lot of documents, like thousands, 10,000, 20,000, something like that. And what they're going to do is basically they focus on acquiring, listing, and shipping. So why would anyone be a volume dealer? Well, the biggest reason to be a volume dealer is steady income. It's a numbers game with them. They know, okay, if I have 1,000 documents and I sell 1% a week, it's a certain number of documents I'm selling per week. If my average price point is $50, this allows them to have either a full-time job or a part-time job doing this. So they're sacrificing maybe top dollar in certain situations in exchange for steady income, predictable income, normal hours, that kind of thing. So they are often light on research. They do basic research to list these items, but they may miss some things. So there are definitely opportunities with a volume dealer. Also, they're kind of generalists. They have to accept what they can find. They're not specializing in a certain field, most likely. They're probably buying lots from estates. They're buying in volume wherever they can find old documents, postcards, ephemera, things like that. They're doing basic research, but they're really, remember that the volume dealer is focusing on acquiring, listing, and shipping. And the more they can do that, and the more efficient they are, the more money they make. So this is a good place for lower price documents, for if you're looking for deals or bargains or things that people have missed. The volume dealers can be a good place to start, but remember, they're also experienced, so they're not going to wildly misprice things for the most part. And a lot of these you're going to find on eBay. You may find them in person too. That is the volume seller. Okay. Number 4, we're going to call the advanced collector. Now, the advanced collector is an individual who is more picky or discerning about their purchases. They're not operating necessarily a big volume operation where they're just stockpiling these documents and churning them out as quickly as they can to purchasers. They are interested in certain types of documents and they collect those. They look for deals. They tend to thoroughly research what they do have because they have fewer things. And when they sell, you're going to get the benefit of the research, but you're not typically going to find the best deals with the advanced collectors because they know exactly what they have. They're probably much more specialized than the volume seller. And this is a good place for an individual to be, honestly. It is a place where you can benefit from your knowledge of history, benefit from your own experience, and really bring yourself up to speed in a certain area that these other sellers can't concentrate in. So a lot of times you'll find a lot of these on eBay as well. That is the advanced collector. Okay. Now, number 5, I'm going to call the amateur or general reseller. You may think that when it comes to historical documents, there aren't going to be too many parties selling these that are kind of clueless, for lack of a better word. And that's not true. It kind of happens, I wouldn't say all the time, but it does happen regularly, where people who are not experts, not even advanced in their terms of knowledge and in terms of historical documents, come into the possession of documents. And oftentimes they don't want to really take the time to learn about those, to do all the research, to learn about how to price them, how to sell them. Sometimes they can't even read what they have because of the old style writing, and that's fine. It's not their focus. It's not their area of specialty. They just want to get rid of these and sell them for a price. And it's not worth it to them to spend a lot of time and aggravation trying to get top dollar. So they basically found documents somehow, either through an estate sale, a garage sale, a yard sale, something like that. They basically want to get some quick cash for them. So research will be very light usually. The research can be incorrect. Often they will title things wrong. Wrong title, wrong description. A big thing on eBay, this category will often put them into the wrong category where they will not be seen. And another big thing is they will put things up for auction that really should be a buy it now, thinking that it is more rare and desirable than it is, and nobody sees that auction. Sometimes the auction will end in the middle of the day, on the wrong day, something like that. And you can really find some good deals here. But you're also going to find the most junk, and you're going to have to sift through that. This is also kind of where the fakes live. I don't want to get too overblown and scare you about fakes, but an auction house is really not going to pass off a fake. A retail gallery, not so much, even these other two. But people who don't know what they have, they might innocently or not be trying to be passing off a reproduction of something. So it's still a great category to look at, because this is where you're going to find the bargains. This is where you're going to find the documents that are quote unquote a steal. But you do have to sort through a lot of junk. You do have to do your own research, which takes time because they have not done the research for you. You do have to verify things that they claim, because they can claim pretty much anything and get away with it. There's not a lot of repercussions for being wrong about something on eBay. eBay especially is using AI descriptions, and so many of these sellers will just hit that AI description button, and it doesn't really know what that document is. It's just guessing. So this would also include, like I said, the estate sellers, any kind of operation that's selling lots, yard sales, flea markets, Facebook Marketplace. These are businesses that are not focused on historical documents, but every city pretty much has an aggregator of estates. It's usually located like in the surrounding counties. They're kind of in rural areas usually, because they require large sites to sort all this stuff and to have lots of parking for people. And there's one near me where every two to 3 weeks they collect all these estates, all these possessions, and just list them. And they definitely do not have time to sort through a box of old documents, a box of old postcards, a box of old letters, anything like that. They don't come up all the time, but when they do come up, that would fall into this category because, once again, it's unresearched. There's a high probability it's junk, but it might not be. You might have one or two good things in that lot that makes it all worthwhile. So that would be the amateur or the general reseller category. And as I said, most, if not all, sellers will fit into pretty much one of these categories quite squarely. There can be some overlap. You could make a case for, a few different things, some hybrids and whatnot, but understanding these 5 will really help you get started. You have to, well, let's put it this way. Which one of these is the best? Well, there is no best. They all have their strengths and weaknesses. A lot's going to come down to your goals, your time horizon, your interests, the amount of capital you have, and also where, if you're really interested in a certain document, where it lands. If something comes up on history for sale, but it's not the best bargain, but it's really unique, it's exactly what you've been looking for, well, then you have to deal with that. You could try to wait on eBay for years for something like that to come up again, and it may not. So once again, it just depends what you're looking for. If you want prestige, absolute authentication, fully researched, shipped to you perfectly, you don't have to worry about any of that, and you have a long time horizon, lots of capital, you might gravitate more toward 1 and 2. If you're looking for bargains, looking for deals, looking for absolute steals, not that picky, you're looking in different areas, you might look at the volume dealer or the amateur or the general resellers. That's where the lower price points are going to be. That's where the deals are going to be. That's where the bargains are going to be. And of course, if there's something specific you're interested in, an advanced collector might be an option as well. So I hope this is helpful just to get the wheels turning, understand how this market functions really, where you can source these documents, and we're going to continue this next time. Please subscribe to the channel, History Inscribed. Next time, we're going to talk about the other side of this, and we're going to talk about the different ways that you can actually make money with historical document collecting and investing. So that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching History Inscribed.